Myself, Dr. Sharada MK, PG Scholar, Department of Ayurveda Samhita and Siddhanta. It's with profound happiness and enthusiasm I take this opportunity to welcome all the dignitaries, professors, teachers, and students to Charaka Prabodham webinar series conducted by Government Ayurveda Medical College, Mysore. To brief, Charaka Prabodham is aimed to initiate a thought of introspection to Charaka Samhita to the Vaidya fraternity in enhancement of the Shastra Chintana. It is basically a 3-day webinar series. This is conducted as a part of Charaka Jayanti celebrations, Aaradhana, to pay our respect and gratitude to Acharya Charaka on this auspicious month of Shravan. Let's now invoke the blessings of Almighty with a small prayer. देवादिवैद्य निरवत्य गुणैकवेद्या तेजोतिहृत्य मघवाद्यमराभिवन्द्या संसारसागरतरे नृहरे मुरारे धन्वन्तरे तव पदे शरणं प्रपद्ये आदिधन्वन्तरे तुभ्यं शान्तगम्भीरतेजसे ओजसे सर्वदेवानां आदिवैद्याय मङ्गलम्. I now request our beloved Principal Sir, Dr. Radhakrishna Ramarao Sir, to give the inaugural address to mark the official commencement of Charaka Prabodham 2023. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It gives me an immense pleasure to organize and host Charaka Prabodham, a national level webinar series on Charaka Samhita. The program is initiated by Department of Samhita Siddhanta as well as Students Association. Students Association of Government Ayurveda Medical College, Mysore. The main aim and theme of the webinar is to explore as well as experience Charaka Samhita in depth. We are fortunate enough to have most renowned resource persons Dr. Ritesh Gujarathi, Dr. Vaibhav Dhadu, and Dr. Abhijit Saraf. I am thankful to them for accepting our invitation. Now I hereby announce that Charaka Prabodham National Level Webinar Series is inaugurated. I wish all the success to the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I now take the privilege of introducing our today's guest speaker, Dr. Ritesh Gujarathi, sir. Dr. Ritesh sir is currently working as a professor and head in the Department of Basic Principles at G.J. Patel Institute of Ayurvedic Studies and Research, CVM University, Anand. He has completed his BAMS from North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon, Maharashtra, and MD from the National Institute, IPGT and RA, Jamnagar, Gujarat. Sir has completed his PhD from Tilak Ayurveda Vidyapeeth, Pune. Sir has a total teaching experience of 17 years and he is a PhD guide at CVM University. He has a credit of publishing 4 books and 27 research papers. Sir's area of specialization is fundamental principles of Ayurveda. Sir has delivered 120 plus talks at various institutes and he has been the resource person for various online and offline faculty development programs, faculty induction programs, reorientation programs, seminars and webinars. It is with profound happiness that we are happy to have you on our webinar series, Charaka Prabodham, sir. I welcome you for today's series. Over to you, sir. Thank you. Sir, you are not audible, sir.
Now, I think I'm audible
Thank
now.
you.
Yes, yes. Thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much.
Yes. Thank you.
Just give me a minute to share my presentation. Whether the slides are visible, Dr. Sharda?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Just let me make
It's not in slideshow mode. Yeah. Yeah. 1 second.
now.
No, sir.
Now, whether it's full screen now?
No, it's not visible, sir.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Now it is.
Yeah. The slides are visible, sir. Please try the full screen mode, sir. Slideshow.
Just a minute. Now
Yes.
it is full screen.
No. So can you just try changing the slides?
Yeah. Can I see the slides moving?
No, sir. It's not visible, sir. It's not visible, sir.
Okay, just a minute. I think StreamYard I'm using for the first time actually. Just
Okay, sir.
okay. Just let me upload my presentation so that it might be.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Take your
Yes.
time. In the settings, you
Whether
have
slides are
slides
visible.
option. Slides
Just a minute.
option. Yeah. Yes. Visible. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
It's visible, na? Let me make.
It's visible. Yes. Yes.
I hope now it is visible.
Yes. Yes. It's visible, sir. Just check once by changing the slides, sir. We'll make
Yeah.
sure of that also.
It's the same. Sure, sure.
Yes, sir. Yes. It's clear.
Huh?
It's changing.
Okay. Just a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
A very good morning to one and all. Respected principal from Government Ayurveda College, Mysore, the organizing committee, respected Shrivas sir, as well as other faculties from the Department of Sanhita Siddhant, Government Ayurveda College, Mysore, as well as dear PG scholars and my dear students. First, let me extend my sincere thanks to the organizers for coming up with the idea of this webinar and just providing us opportunity to be a part of this webinar. So today I am here to talk about understanding Tantrayukti beyond literary perspective. We all have studied the concept of Tantrayukti at first year BMS level. Generally, this topic is always taught at the end of the syllabus, except now when the syllabus is changed where it is kept in the beginning now. Otherwise, Tantrayukti has always been taught at the end of the syllabus. And generally, all students know that Tantrayukti is something, this concept is useful to understand the Samhitas properly. So we always focus on the...
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Sorry to interrupt. Please, can you on your camera, sir?
Yeah, just a minute.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. Fine.
Thank you, sir.
So, as I was talking about, as everybody understands Tantrayukti in only literary perspective, we all know that all these, whatever 32, 36 or 40 Tantrayuktis are there, they're all important in understanding Samhitas. That is our core concept. But even if we go beyond this literary aspect, even Tantrayuktis can be understood in clinical perspective, as well as these Tantrayuktis can be understood through research perspective. So what view that I would like to present here is Tantrayukti is something which can be used for any applied science. So whatever the Tantrayuktis, their definitions, their examples are told, which are available in commentaries as well as their text from Samhitas, we can understand that these Tantrayuktis can be used for any applied science. And this is what I am going to present today. Now, just let me change the slide. Yes. Now, talking about the presentation contents for today's webinar. First, we'll be seeing the definition of the Tantrayukti, as well as what is the provision of Tantrayuktis, what is the importance, what are the types, then number differences among various acharyas. So, just to brush up the concept of Tantrayukti, maybe within 8 to 10 slides, what we will see the introduction of Tantrayukti, mainly as this webinar is planned for Charak Jayanti. We are celebrating Charak Jayanti celebrations. So I am focusing the concept of Tantrayukti specifically related to Charakokta definitions, talking about, because the description of Tantrayukti is available in Charak Samhita Siddhistan 12th chapter, and there also we get the details only about the names of Tantrayuktis, whereas the definitions and their examples, that is the contribution of Acharya Chakrapani, which is available in Ayurveda Deepika commentary. So mainly I'll be focusing on the definitions of Tantrayukti which are available in Ayurveda Deepika commentary, and talking about the application of Tantrayukti, though I'm taking the examples from Ayurveda Deepika commentary, but today I'm not here to explain all those examples. Directly, we will be focusing on how to understand these Tantrayuktis beyond literary perspective, specifically clinical as well as research. So this is what we will be talking today. Now, we all know the definition of Tantrayukti. It is made up of two words, that is Tantra plus Yukti. We all understand Tantra, that is Trayate Shariram Anena Iti Tantram, Shastram Chikitsacha. Now, I don't know why the shlokas are not coming up properly. But so, Yukti, it says Tasya Yuktayo Yojanaha Tantra Yuktayaha. So, Tantra is Shastra, and when it comes to the application of this Shastra, Tantra Yukti is very important concept. One more definition which is available in Ashtanga Hridaya, because their Tantrayuktis are described as a part of Tantra Gunas, where Acharya Vagbhat says, Tantrayate dharyate shariram anena iti tantram, and tasya gunaha tantra gunaha. Yahi tantram alankriyate. So main purpose of Tantrayukti there is alankriyate, that to make that science more and more beautiful, which will be accepted by more and more acharyas. So when we talk about Tantra Gunas, Tantrayuktis are considered as one of the Tantra Gunas, which makes the science more and more acceptable with all the teachers and learners of Ayurveda. Now, talking about the Prayojan of Tantrayukti, which is available in Sushruta Samhita, which says these two words, that is Vakya Yojanam, Artha Yojanam. For Vakya Yojanam and Artha Yojanam, the commentator of Sushruta Samhita, Dallan, comes with this shlok, Vakyasya asambandhasya yojanam, sambandhanam Vakya Yojanam. That is to connect the sentences. And second, Linasya asangatasya charthasya. So lean, those with concepts, Prakashanam, Sangatikaram, Chartha Yojanam. So those hidden concepts can be understood with the help of Tantra, as well as to connect various sentences. sentences so they can understand the concept properly. So this is where a Sushruta has come up when it comes to Prayojan of Tantrayukti. Few more shlokas which are available in Charak Siddhistan. The first one says, Yatha Ambuj Vanasyarkaha, Pradipo Veshmano Yatha, Prabodhan Prakashartaha, Tatha Tantrasya Yuktayaha. So these two words are very important. Prabodhanam. So as in the commentary, the details are available. That is Prabodhanat Vistaraka. So Vistaraka, that is the explanation of the concepts, so that those students which are having low IQ can understand the science properly. Because when Acharya Charak talks about students, he says about Trivida Buddhi and the Shastra, which can be understood by all the students, that too with low IQ, that is considered as better. So Tantra Yukti helps in explaining those concepts as well as understanding those concepts. And Gudam Prakashayanti. So here also you can see these two photographs. The first one where the source of light can illuminate the things, and we can see the things which are available in the dark room. Whereas the second photo is about blooming of the lotus flower. So here it is about Prakashartha. So these two like prayojanas are very important when it comes to the concept of Tantra Yukti. So those hidden concepts can be understood with the help of Tantra Yuktis. Uh, when we also, there are few more verses which are available in the context of Tantra Yukti, importance of Tantra Yukti. That is, Ekasmin api yasya shastre labdaspadamati. Shastram anyadapi ashu yukti gyatvat prabudhyate. So most of the shlokas are distorted. I don't know why it has happened, but it might be due to the software. So ekasmin api yasya shastre labdaspadamati. So if a disciple of the Ayurveda or a scholar of Ayurveda, he is well versed with one Samhita, either Ashtang Hridayam, Ashtang Sangram, Charak Samhita or Sushruta Samhita. So Shastram Anyadapi Ashu Yukti Gyatva Prabudhyate. It means if one Samhita has been studied properly, rest of the Samhitas can be studied very easily with the concepts of Tantra Yukti. For studying another Samhita, maybe second, third, or fourth, the person is not going to take the same time that he might have taken for learning the first Samhita. So Tantra Yukti helps in the understanding of the Samhitas properly, and that too in a very short span of time. So that is very helpful for the scholars. One more shlok which is available in the context of importance of Tantra Yukti, that is Adhiyano api shastrani Tantra Yuktya vina bishak nadi gacchati shastrarthan. If somebody is learning science without understanding the concepts of Tantra Yukti, then he might learn or he might understand the shlokas. He might be in a position to translate them, but he cannot reach up to the depth of the shlokas which is needed for practicing this science. So that's why Nadi Gacchati Shastrarthan. So for better practicing this science, we need to understand thoroughly, and that thorough understanding is only possible with the concept of Tantrayukti. One more simile has been given here. Arthan Bhagyakshayata. We all know the incidents from 2019. Mr. Siddharth, who was like owner of this cafe coffee day, somehow suicide was there, and it was in the public domain that death over depth. So when there is bhagyakshay, certainly you're not going to get the money. In the same way, concept of Tantra Yukti, then you'll not be able to reach up to the depth talking about. This is one more shlok which is available in the context of importance of Tantrayukti. Durgruhitam kshinoteva shastram shastram iva abudam. Sugruhitam tadeva gyam shastram shastram cha rakshati. So shastra and shastra, if they are held properly, Tantra Yukti, if a person has understood Tantra Yukti properly, then the Shastra can be used for the benefit of the society. Am I audible, Dr. Sharda? Sorry for the interruption. Just a minute, let me share my presentation. Okay. Yes. Sorry for the technical glitch. Yes. These are few more shlokas which are available in the context of Tantrayukti. Asat vyadi prayuktanam vakyanam pratishedanam swavakya siddhirapi. So when we are part of any debate, this is very important. When you are in a debate, you have to refute the comments of your opponent, as well as you are supposed to establish your own views. And for both these things, to establish your own views as well as to refute the comments of your opponents, Tantrayukti can be very helpful. Besides that, as Sushruth has already highlighted, the same kind of importance is described in Samhitas. Vyaktana uktastu. So all those hidden concepts, lina chayapi anirmalaha, leshokta, which are not described properly. So for all these things, Tantrayuktis has to be understood properly. Then only we can convey the science in a better manner. Now, so yes, on the basis of all of these references, we can say application of Tantrayukti is very much dependent on the so application of Tantra, that is Shastra, is very much dependent on the concept of Tantrayukti. Better understanding of Tantra or Shastra depends on Tantrayukti. Hidden meanings, you can reach up to that depth of the science only with the help of Tantrayukti. And most important, when we are here to offer our services to the society, it is very much important that we need to understand our science properly. So science which is understood properly can be used properly, and Tantrayukti certainly it plays a very pivotal role. In the last 8 to 10 years, we come across with various articles which helps us to understand the concept of Tantrayukti beyond a literary perspective. So certainly, Yojakas Tatra Durlabha, it is totally dependent on a person that the concept of Tantrayukti, which can be applied to any applied science. So let us not restrict this concept of Tantrayukti only in literary perspective. Let us think beyond that. So now, yes, this is about the details of Tantrayuktis which are available in Sushruta Samhita. The most ancient texts where 32 Tantrayuktis are available. In Charaka Samhita, 36 Tantrayuktis are available. Prayojan, Pratyusar, Uddhar, Sambhav, these Tantrayuktis are not available in Sushruta Samhita. Whereas Atita Veksha Tantrayukti is described as Atikranta Vekshan Tantrayukti in Sushruta Samhita. Talking about Ashtang Sangra, the same 36 Tantrayuktis are available that are described in Charaka Samhita. Ashtang Hridaya has followed the same pattern. So here also 36 Tantrayuktis are available. Yes, Bhattar Harishchandra has come up with 4 more Tantrayuktis. So the number goes to 40 Tantrayuktis. And these 4 Tantrayuktis, that is Hetu, Pariprashna, Vyakaran, and Vikranta Vidhan, these are additional Tantrayuktis which are available or which are described by Bhattar Harishchandra. Now let us go one by one through the Tantrayuktis. We have got almost maybe half an hour. Dr. Sharda, please let me know when to finish, because I'll not be able to cover all the Tantrayuktis. So whatever Tantrayuktis we may be able to cover, maybe up to 12, 10, we will cover, and then we can conclude. So please let me know when to finish. So Adhikaran Tantrayukti, as we already know, that it is about the main subject. As the definition which is available in Ayurveda Deepika commentary, it says Adhikaranam nama yam artham adhikritya pravartate karta. Further, he gives the example of Roga iti Adhikaranam. So talking about Charaka Samhita, he says that the main Adhikaran should be considered as a Rog, and that's why even the shlok goes like Vigna Bhuta Yada Roga Pradurbhuta Shariranam. And that's why the first debate which has happened at the bottom of Himalayas, that has happened just to address Vigna Bhuta Yada Roga. So a problem was there. To solve that problem, this conference or debate happened, and then the entire Charaka Samhita has come. Now, yes, when we talk about Adhikarnas, yes, Samhitas can have their own Adhikarnas, Sthanas different, Sutrastan, Nidanstan, Vimanstan, Sharistan. They can have their own Adhikarnas or specialty topics. Even adhyayas, for example, talking about Dirganjivite Madhyam, Apamarga Tanduliya, then Shadvirechan Shatashitiya, Matra Shitiya, Tasya Shitiya, Na Vegandarne. So every adhyaya has been designed with even Chatushkas, Charak Samhita, there's a concept of Chatushka. So specific adhikaran of Chatushka is there, and this is how four chapters have been combined to give or to address that specific concepts. Even shlokas can have their own adhikarana. So this is how we need to understand adhikaran. Now, talking about the concept of adhikaran in the context of clinical aspect, we all know Swasthasya Swasthya Rakshanam and Aturasya Vyadhi Parimoksha. So the stakeholders should work for maintaining the health of healthy individuals and to address those diseases or to address those patients, to take care of those patients and to set them free from diseases. This will be our ultimate aim. So that can be considered as adhikaran in clinical perspective. Talking about research, we all know the concept of null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. And whenever we are working for those 2-3 years, maybe at PG, PhD, or when we are working on various research projects, we are here to support our alternate hypothesis. And at the end of our study, we should reject our null hypothesis and come up that, okay, the alternate hypothesis that is proved. So that can be considered as the adhikaran for research. Talking about next Tantrayukti, that is Yoga Tantrayukti, which is about the arrangement of the Samhita, Yogo Nama, Yojana, Vyastanam, Padanam, Ekikaranam. As we have seen, one purpose of Tantrayukti, that is to connect the sentences. So Yogo Nama, Yojana, Vyastanam, Padanam, Ekikaranam. So to connect those sentences, to connect those words. Here the example regarding Pararthanuman, that is Panchavaya Vakya, has been taken. So Hetu, Drushtanta, Upanay, Nigaram, all these things have to be used to come up with a specific concept. As I have already told that I am not going into the details in literary perspective, my main focus will only be on how these Tantrayuktis can be understood for clinical and research perspective. So in the clinical perspective, what we need to do is we need to connect all these things. For example, we start from the past history, then present history, then family history, then clinical examination, also investigation. So all those things we need to connect together. Then only we can talk about the diagnosis as well as provisional diagnosis, and that is going to help you to decide the treatment course. So this is how this Tantrayukti can be understood. In research perspective, we all know that we start from literary review. Also, we need to go for analytical study, clinical study, observation. And from your literary review to your observations, discussions, finally we conclude that, okay, either your null hypothesis is accepted, rejected, or the same for alternate hypothesis. So this is how Yoga Tantrayukti will be helping us to connect all those things. So it is like it is like addressing that puzzle to connect all those things, and we can address that puzzle or solve that puzzle. Hetvartha, it is nothing but additional use of concepts. So a concept which is told at one place has to be used at different places. So we all know that all Sutrasthanas, you take any Samhita, all important concepts are described in Sutrasthan. And while going through rest of the sthanas, we are supposed to use all those concepts. Otherwise, what will happen? The same concept they have to repeat. Then it will go to Punarukti Dosh. So that's why a concept which is told in Sutrasthan has to be used at different places. And that's why the definition goes, Hetvartho Nama Anyatra Abhihitam Anyatra Upapadyate. So the concept is told at one place and it has to be used at different places. So here also the example has been given that Saman Gunabhyaso hi Dhatunam Vriddhi Karanam. So this shlok here is addressed in the context of Vata Dosh, but that has to be understood in the context of Dhatunam. Here the commentator says Yatha Vayoho Tatha Rasadinam Api Saman Gunabhyaso Vriddhi Karanam. It means though the concept is told in the context of Vata Dosh, it has to be applied to Rasadi Dhatus. So this is how Hetvartha Tantrayukti will help us to use a concept which is told at one place and it has to be used at other places or multiple places. Now, in clinical perspective, we all know that all these basic samhita, siddhantas like Samanya Vishay Siddhant, Tridosh Siddhant or Panchamahabhut Siddhant, all these siddhantas has to be used. You go through any from like Rasayan Adhyay to Yoni Vyapat Chikitsa, all 30 chapters. Almost in each and every chapter, we come across with various shlokas which are based on these concepts. So, though concepts are told in first chapter or maybe in Sutrastan, they are vividly used throughout the Samhitas. So, a clinician cannot move ahead a single step without the use of these concepts. So your treatment protocol should be based on these siddhantas. So this is how, again, few more references are there. For example, Grishma Rutucharya has to be used or described as to be used in Pitta Upakram or Pitta Jwar. So the concept is told in Rutucharya Adhyay, has to be used at some other places. In the same way, one more shlok which is available in Vagbhat, that is Ashtanga Sutrasan, 12th chapter, Greshma Prayo Marut Pitto Vasanta Kapha Marute, Maruto Yoga Vahitva Kapha Pitte Tu Sharda. So, Rutucharyas are described in Sutrastan, but when they talk about addressing, in Sutrastan 13th chapter, Doshokramani Adhyay, there the shlok comes where Vata Upakram, Pitta Upakram, and Kapha Upakram, they have given the details. But when it comes to Sansarga Doshas, Acharya says that follow this shlok, that is Greshma Prayo Marut Pitte. So whenever we are coming across with the Sansarga of Marut and Pitta, that is Vata and Pitta, directly follow Grishma Rutucharya. Vasanta Greshma Prayo Marut Pitte, Vasanta Kapha Marute. So Vasant Rutucharya is to be followed when there is a combination of Kapha and Vata. So accordingly, concept which is told at one place has to be used at different places. This is how we can help our patients. In the same way, the same siddhantas are used in research. So whenever we are finalizing our treatment protocols, we are supposed to give the details that on which siddhantas we are planning our treatment protocol. So yes, siddhantas which are available in Sutrastan have to be used in each and every research. Then Padartha Tantrayukti, we all know Padartho Nama, Padasya Padayoho, Padanam va Artha Padartha. So yes, this is specifically about the technical terms and their meanings. So talking about clinical perspective, yes, these are the different technical terms. Samanya, Vishesh, Urustamba, Avabahuk, Udara, Apasmar. So all these words have got specific meaning. Also, we know the beauty of Sanskrit that each and every word can have different meanings. So now, whenever you want to draw the correct meaning of the verse, we need to use the meaning, a specific meaning as per the context. So all these technical terms and their meanings has to be used as per the context. Even in research, there are all these technical terms, that is hypothesis, null hypothesis, mean, mode, median, probability. So all these things, the technical terms that has to be understood properly. Then only we can use these concepts properly when you are planning. So sorry, like when you are designing your protocol, till you finish your research, the better understanding of all these terms will be only possible if you understand the concept of Padartha Tantrayukti. Then Pradesh Tantrayukti. Now Pradesh is about partial description of a topic. Pradesho nama yat bahutvat arthasya karsnena abhidhatum ashakya. It is not possible. Karsnena, it is not possible to describe the concept in entirety, whatever may be the result. So ashakyam ekadeshena abhidhyate. And that's why partially that concept has been told. The example has been given. That is Anupana Ekadesho Ayamukta. You can give n number of examples for Anupanas. So it is not possible to give the entire list of Anupanas for all the diseases, for all the Vyadhis, for all the formulations. So what is done in Charaka Samhita Sutrastan 27th chapter? They have given some examples of Anupan so that we can understand the concept of Anupan and we can understand the applicability. So Pradesh is something which is described in a concise form, or not only like concise, but partially it is described. So now, yes, in clinical perspective, when we visit entire Chikitsa Sthan, in every Chikitsa Sthan, every chapter from Rasayana Adhyay to again Yoni Vyapat, we come across with many formulations. After giving the details of many formulations, every time Acharya gives the main indication first, and then he gives a list of diseases where the same formulation can be used. So now it is not possible to describe the same formulations in all the chapters. So what they have done is a formulations which was very much important in that chapter has been described in that chapter, and the same formulation has to be used in all those different diseases in different clinical conditions. So this can be understood as the example of this Tantrayukti. Even in research, we all know that small sample studies, generally many times we have to go for pilot studies. So all these small sample studies are applied for larger samples. So it is something which is there partially, which is available, and then which is applied in a very larger context. So this is how we can understand this Tantrayukti. Uddesh, we all know it is nothing but a concise description. Uddesho Nama Sankshepa Abhidanam. The best example we all know, that's the concept of Tri Sutra Ayurveda, that is Hetu Linga Aushadha Jnanam. So concise description. Now let us understand clinical perspective. Now whenever a patient comes to us, has to be understood as a very concise description. When you take a detailed history, he will be providing all those necessary complaints. But the first thing, within 2 to 5 minutes, whatever it tells you, that is the most important complaint, and a physician is supposed to address that complaint. So in short case, for example, at UG level as well as PG, where we will be using only either Trivida Pariksha, Shadvida Pariksha, or Ashtavida Pariksha, and in a very concise format, we will come to the conclusion, okay, this patient is suffering from this disease. So that can be considered as an example of Uddesh Tantrayukti. In the context of research, we can understand the abstract of research papers. Many times we come across with, or whenever we are like doing that literary or previous works, studies, when we apply, when we want to find those research gaps, we need to go through various research articles. But we do not read each and every research article thoroughly. What we do is only we read that abstract portion. If that abstract is interesting and that is related to your proposed work, then only you can go through the entire article. So abstract is nothing but a concise description of the research work. In the same way, whatever synopsis that we are submitting before completing our like PG or PhD, that synopsis is nothing but a summary of your research work. In the same way, in every thesis or dissertation, we find 4 or 5 pages of summary of the entire research works. So if you read that summary, that gives you the outline of the research that is there maybe within like 200, 500 or 1000 pages. So first, we need to go through those abstract or synopsis or summaries. Then we decide whether I should read that entire article or entire thesis. So this is how it can be understood. Now, talking about Nirdesh Tantrayukti, it is nothing but elaboration of the concept. So, Uddesh was concise format, whereas Nirdesh talks about more and more elaboration. So, Nirdesho Nama Sankhya Uktasya Vivaranam. So, again, the same concept of Tri Sutra Ayurveda, which is available throughout the Samhita, that has been described. Now, in clinical perspective, we all know detailed history. So, all those patients that we are seeing in OPD level, that is nothing but a concise format where history taking has been done within 2 to 5 minutes. Patient has been prescribed a medicine and he leaves the OPD maybe within 5 to 10 minutes. Whereas all those patients who are admitted in the hospital, there we are supposed to take a detailed history. In a hospital, the case sheet may have around 30 to 40 pages. So there, all those interns, PG scholars are supposed to take a detailed history, which gives a clear-cut picture of the disease or even the patient's health condition. So all those things that we might have missed in OPD, that can be easily covered in detailed history. So whatever long cases that we are taking at UG as well as PG level are the examples of this Nirdesh Tantrayukti. In the same way, in research perspective, that entire research paper that we are going to read only after reading the abstract. In the same way, all those dissertation or thesis that we are going to read after you find out that, okay, the summary is what interested to me, and then only I'm going to decide. So the reading of the entire research paper or going through the entire dissertation is nothing but the concept of Nirdesh Tantrayukti that we might be using. Now, Vakyashesh Tantrayukti. Vakyashesh is something that a word is missing. Okay, when you draw the a word is missing in a verse, and when you want to draw the correct meaning of the verse, that word is added, and then only you can reach up to the correct meaning of that word. Here also they are given the example, that is pravritti hetur bhavanam, where asti word is missing. In jangalai jayi rasahi mans shabda is missing. So this is from literary perspective, that this is how Tantrayukti will help you to reach up to the correct meaning. So your rasa cannot be considered as rasa dhatu. Rasa has to be understood as mansa rasa. Now, for application purpose, for specifically for clinical perspective, we must understand that whatever pathya we are telling to our patients, or whatever post-surgical guidelines or post-panchakarma guidelines that we are telling to the patients, where we don't give the list of all the substances there. What we will do, either we will be giving them certain rasas or gunas, and on the basis of that we will tell them, okay, you follow this, you please avoid these things. So there, those certain things are missing, but as certain rasas or certain gunas are told, on the basis of that, patient can understand, okay, these things that they are supposed to avoid. So this is how we can understand these things. Now, one more thing that I would like to tell you, that though like this attempt has been made to understand each and every Tantrayukti in clinical and research perspective, some Tantrayuktis cannot be understood as it is in research perspective, because research is something where you cannot miss anything. The pro forma should be crystal clear, everything should be written properly, and we are supposed to follow word to word whatever which is written in protocol. So there is no chance of understanding those words which are missing. So somehow these Tantrayuktis might not be helpful in research perspective. That is my understanding. The next is Prayojan Tantrayukti. Now we all understand Prayojan as a purpose or motive. In Sutrasan first chapter only it is told Dhatu Samya Kriya Chokta Tantra Sasya Prayojana. To understand this in clinical perspective, the ultimate aim will be restoring the health and taking care of the diseases, even maintenance of health. Now day by day wellness clinics are there, so there the main purpose will be maintenance of health. So that will be our Prayojan. In research perspective, we already given the details about aims and objectives. So aim is our central theme, and objective is something which is moving around that. So this is where our research should end up. So this is the Prayojan of a clinical and research perspective in the context of Prayojan Tantrayukti. Now, understanding Upadesh Tantrayukti, we all understand Upadesh is nothing but advice. So Upadesho Nama Apta Anushasana. So yes, there are certain guidelines which are available in Samhitas, but these are guidelines. Now it is up to the user. The guidelines are for physicians, the guidelines are for paricharakas as well as patients. But now if the physician or the paricharakas, if they are following these guidelines, then it is in the welfare of the patients as well as for the physician. But these are not mandatory guidelines. So some kind of liberty is there with the physician as well as paricharakas. But if you are thinking about the best interest of the patients, then it is good that all these guidelines have to be followed very strictly. But then also some kind of liberty is there. So here Sneham Agre Prayunjit Tatha Svedam Anantaram in Sutrastan 13 Adhyaya, that is Sneha Adhyaya, it is all told that first Sneha has to be done and then only patient should be subjected to Sweda Adhyaya. So this is the general guideline which is available. Now talking about the application, whatever advices which are giving to the patients. So they are all advices. We are not there with the patient. But if patient wishes that there won't be any kind of relapses, or if he wants 100% recovery, that too in a very short span of time, then he should be strictly adhere with the advices that are told by the physician. In the same way, there are certain guidelines which are provided in research. For example, ethical guidelines are there. Even the guidelines like age group, whenever a patient gets admitted in the hospital or whenever a patient is subjected to a research, we are supposed to take a consent. If the patient is less than 18 years, then we are supposed to go for assent. Even some adults should accompany the pediatric patient. And yes, most important, all this consent as well as assent should be written in trilingual form, as or at least they should be in a regional language, so that the person, either the parent or the person who is subjected to the research, he should understand that what kind of research he is into. Also, participants' rights are there. That has to be understood by the patients or the research participants. So yes, these are the guidelines that a researcher should follow if you wish that your research has to be is to be published in a very good reputed journals. Then whatever ethical guidelines are there, even we talk about all those guidelines which are about consort guidelines. Okay, consort guidelines you are supposed to follow, for example, all those 25 points. If you follow them properly, then we can say that okay, the research is done in a very ethical manner. So again, these are the guidelines. If one is following that, then okay, the outcome will be very good. But then we also know that okay, there are many researches which are done and where all these consort guidelines are not followed. So yes, there is some kind of liberty. Okay, so this is how we can understand this Tantra Yukti. Apadesh Tantrayukti. Apadesh Tantrayukti is nothing but giving a genuine reason. So whenever you are saying something, you are supposed to give a genuine reason for that. Say Apadesho Nama Yat Pratigyat Artha Sadhanaya Hetu Vachanam. So Hetu is very important. Vimanstan third chapter, we all know Vigyat Dushpariharetvat. When the shlok goes like Vatat Jalam Jalat Desham Deshat Kalam, what is the reasoning for that? So author comes with a reasoning Dushpariharetvat. So it means in succeeding order, they are more difficult to address. Now to understand this in clinical perspective, this is important. Whenever we are telling up, like whenever we are in conversation with a patient, and when you are talking about the pathya and apatya guidelines, whenever you tell the patient that okay, these are the apatyas, many times we come up with such certain questions that okay, why I should allow, why I should not consume this, or why I should consume this. So there we are supposed to give a genuine reasoning. If our reasoning is genuine, then only patient is going to follow all those guidelines. In the same way, when we are in prognosis of the disease, when we say that okay, this disease falls in the category of either sukha sadhya or krishna sadhya or yapya or asadhya, and when we are sharing this prognosis with the patient's relatives, we are supposed to come up with a reasoning. Then only they can understand, or they can understand the severity of the disease, and then they will help you to take a decision whether the patient has to be subjected to a surgery, or where here Shodhan Chikitsa is very much important than Shaman Chikitsa. So there we should come up with genuine reasoning. In research also, for example, in discussion at the end of the research, when we are writing our discussion, sometimes we come across with some untoward effects or additional results. Also, we are supposed to give the details of like how your medicine has either worked, or how why this drug has not worked. So all that should come as a part of your discussion. So we are supposed to give those genuine reasoning that why these kind of things have happened. All these things were not planned previously, but yes, these are the outcomes. And now as a researcher, as we are in the research maybe for 2 years or 3 years, we understand it properly, and we are supposed to come up with those genuine reasoning, and that should be there in a discussion part, and that will be a genuine contribution of the guide as well as the scholar. Just giving the observations and not giving the details why it has happened, that will be incomplete discussion. So whenever we in a discussion, the proper discussion, proper like communication of a scholar and guide should happen, and they should come up with all those genuine reasons. Then only the research will be more and more convincing. Atidesh Tantra Yukti, it is about certain anuktarthas or consideration of unsaid principles. Now here we must understand that when we follow these Tantra Yuktis in different samhitas, sometimes for few of the Tantra Yuktis, different, like very different kind of description is available. So here we are restricting to Charak Samhita, Atidesho Nama Yat Kinchit Eva Prakashya Artham Anuktartha Sadhanaya Evam Anyadapi Pratyetavyam. So the shlok comes from Sutrasthana 8th chapter, that is Indriya Upakramaniya. We all know that Indriya Upakramaniya is about Swastha Vritta. But now we must understand that it is not possible in one chapter. So what is told here that okay, if there are certain concepts of swastha vrittas which are available in other samhitas, all those concepts are to be followed. So that's why it says yaccha annadapi kinchit syat anuktam yah pujitam. So a respect is there. Those certain principles which are not available in Charak Samhita may be available in other samhitas, may be available in other literature, but if they are good for maintaining the health, vrittam tad apich atreya sadevabhyam anumanyate. So we are supposed to follow. So yes, here all those principles have been accepted, and yes, the patients or the physicians are supposed to follow all those guidelines. Now, we all know the concept of Anukta Vyadhi, which is available in Charak Samhita, Chikitsa Sthan 30th chapter, where all those diseases which are not described in Samhita, where the principles they are told that we need to think about doshas, we need to think about adhishtanas, we need to think about the causative factors of the diseases. It is somewhat similar to the concept of Trivida Bodhya Sangra, which is available in Charak Samhita Sutrasan 18th chapter, which talks about Trivida Bodhya Sangra, which is specifically written for those diseases which are not described in Samhitas. So yes, principles are there. We are supposed to follow those principles, and we can address all those diseases which are not described in Samhita. In the same way, in research also, small sample studies can be applied to larger population. The same kind of description which we have seen in previous Tantrayukti also. Small sample surveys, whatever conclusions are there from a small sample study or pilot study, can be applied to a larger population. So though it is not described for them, though research was not done for them, now it has done for a very small population. But on the basis of outcome, if the results are good, the same can be applied for larger population. For example, in COVID, we have seen the vaccines. First, there were researchers were done on a very small population. Then government came up with a decision that okay, the results are good, and then the vaccines were adopted, and we could see the good results of all those vaccines. So though the study was not done on them, all those principles can be applied for them also. Arthapatti, that is nothing but implication. So Arthapatti nama yad akirtitam arthad apadyate. Not available, not described, then also we understand. The best example is naktam dadi bhojan nishida, na naktam dadi bhunjit. We interpret it as arthat diva bhunjit. So we can consume it during daytime. Now, yes, this is important. For clinical perspective, yes, application of the Guradi Gunas. For example, throughout Samhitas, we come across with like references that okay, here Guru is contraindicated. It means that okay, here we are supposed to use Laghu Dravyas. In the same way, where somewhere it is said that okay, Ruksha is contraindicated, Snigdha is contraindicated. It means we can use the Arthapatti and we can use either Snigdha or Ruksha Dravyas where the other or where the opposite is contraindicated. Now again, I couldn't correlate this Tantrayukti with research because as I told you, the bracket of research is very crystal clear and we cannot go beyond that bracket. And Arthapatti, it is something about going outside the bracket, which is not told there and you have to understood. But in this is what my understanding is that okay, this Tantrayukti cannot be properly understood in the context of research perspective. Talking about Nirnay Tantrayukti, which is mainly about decision and conclusion. In all applied sciences, decision or conclusion is the last part, and after that we generally take a action. So Nirnayo Nama Vicharitasya Arthasya Vyavasthapanam. To understand this in clinical and research perspective, we all know that before reaching up to the diagnosis, we need to go through provisional diagnosis, then differential diagnosis, and that will help us to reach up to the final diagnosis. So until and unless we reach up to the final diagnosis, we cannot we cannot initiate the treatment of the disease. So here again, conclusion is very much important. Even decision in the form of what kind of chikitsa should be chosen, whether the patient is eligible for Shodhana chikitsa, Shamana chikitsa, or Aushadha chikitsa, Shastra chikitsa, Kshar karma, or Agni karma. Even in Aushad karma, what kind of medicine are to be used, multiple options are available. So that decision has to be done by a physician depending upon Dusham, Desham, Balam, Kalam, Analam, Prakritim, Vaya. And after that decision only, and that's why in the same shlok, Acharya Vagbhat says, Dosh Aushadha Nirupane, Sukshma, Samiksha Esham, Dosh Aushadha Nirupane. Then only we can conclude. And if you follow this guideline, na skhalati jatuchit. So if the decision is proper, it is based on proper process, and if the decision is correct, na skhalati jatuchit, it means here the physician is not going to commit any mistake in the diagnosis and in the management of the diseases. So here this Nirnay Tantrayukti is very much useful. In the same way, we should understand it in research perspective that rejection of null hypothesis and acceptance of alternate hypothesis is based on observations and results. So whatever your analytical study, whatever clinical study, whatever experimental study, whatever observations are there, on the basis of that, whatever results are there, we are supposed to conclude. And that conclusion comes after the like a very vigorous kind of research study that we might have done for last few years. So conclusion is very important, that what you are concluding, and those conclusions help further researchers that okay, what were the research gaps, how they were addressed, and okay, what are the lacunas. Okay, still there is some research gap, and accordingly they can plan their own research studies in future. Even on the basis of conclusion, we are supposed to give future recommendations. So yes, conclusions are very important in research perspective. So this is how this Tantrayukti can help you. Talking about Prasanga Tantrayukti, it is nothing but restatement. Now restatement, so okay, some concept was there in Sutrasthan. Now generally Punarukta Dosh says that the same kind of concept should never be repeated in future. But sometimes Shastrakaras feel that for the better understanding of the concepts which are maybe available in latter sthanas, maybe Indriya Sthan, maybe Chikitsa Sthan, maybe Kalpa, maybe Siddhi Sthanas. So what they will do, the same concepts they were described in Sutra Sthana, there will be repetition of those concepts in rest of the sthanas. So actually it should be considered as Punarakti Dosh. So to justify that, okay, this is not Punarakti Dosh, this Tantrayukti might have been designed. So say for example, here we can understand the concept of, which is available in this Samyak Yoga, Ayog and Ati Yoga, which is available at multiple places in Samhitas. So this should not be considered as overlapping or Punarakti Dosh, and this should be understood with the help of Prasanga Tantrayukti. So to understand those concepts which are described there, first in brief they will give the concepts of Sutrasthan. Further, talking about the application of these concepts, like in clinical aspect also, whenever we are dealing with the patient, we need to know the details about past, we need to know about family history. So though that might not be related with this disease, but then also for better understanding of this disease, for better management of this disease, even for the prognosis and diagnosis of this disease, all those things which has already happened in the past, even some kind of allergies will be there, all those things we need to note, and accordingly we need to plan the treatment protocol, we need to diagnose or prognose. The prognosis should be done on the basis of those incidences which has happened in the past. In even research also, we all know that while writing the research article, we quote various researches which are somewhat similar. So what we do is we do cite in referencing. So all those references which are helpful to support my study or to authenticate what I am proposing, we do all kind of research studies that has happened in the past. So research article citations, all those citations increases the authenticity of articles. So all those citations are nothing but the things which has happened already in the past, but we are repeating those concepts just to authenticate what we are telling. So this is how we can understand this concept or Tantrayukti. Now, Ekanta Tantrayukti, it is about the confirmatory statement, but again it is partial. Ekanto nama yad avadharanena uchyate yatha nijaha sharir doshotha tivrut virechayati. So these kind of confirmatory remarks are given in Samhitas, and that has to be understood like that only. In Samhitas only, or when we are in clinical like setting, final diagnosis or final treatment protocol, whatever written, that can be considered as this Tantrayukti. Even final mode of the action, whatever conclusions you are doing after meta-analysis, also we will be concluding certain things. So those can be considered in the context of this Tantrayukti. The second the Tantrayukti after Ekanta is Anekanta, where multiple opinions are there. So now Anekanto Nama Anyatar Pakshan Avadharanam. So here we need to understand some other views also. In Samhitas, we come across with even Charak Samhita also, there are 7 debates, 4 in Sutrastan, 2 in Sharistan, and 1 in Siddhistan 11 chapter. So all these debates are nothing but the best examples of how multiple opinions have been taken, and after that Atre Punarvasu has concluded their opinion. Anekanta application, now in Samhita also we know the concept of Purusha Diksha. So each and every patient is different. So each and every patient has to be understood properly. And this also supports the concept of rather personalized medicine than standardized medicine. Because now the entire world, when it is talking about standardized medicine, Ayurveda has already talked about the concept of personalized medicine a very thousands of years back. So here, each and every patient has to be understood. The disease, the prakriti, all these concepts have to be taken into consideration, and then only the management of the disease has to be done. Then many times the diagnosis about diseases differ among Vaidyas. Even Samprapti understanding will be different, treatment protocol will be different. So various opinions will be there. And all these opinions will be on the basis of the concepts of Tridoshas and Panchamahabhutas and the concepts of Dhatus. So on the basis of their understanding, they conclude and then they manage the disease. In research also, difference of opinion is very much important. When we are in the process of planning the research, we may discuss it with your colleagues, we may discuss it with your other research scholars, with your guides, teachers. So different opinions that helps us to design a flawless research protocol. So all those opinions are going to help us to eliminate all those errors which might be there, which may we may overlook if we are doing it on our own only. So yes, discussion gives a lot of scope to more than one opinion, and research outcome can be multifaceted if the research has been proper after a thorough understanding, or if it has been planned after taking opinions of many persons. So this is very important. Talking about Apavarga Tantrayukti, we all know that the concept of Apavarga Tantrayukti is about exception. So Apavargo naam Sakallena Uddishtasya Ekadesha Apakarshanam. So the best examples of Apavarga Tantrayuktis are available in Samhitas, particularly in Atre Bhadrakapya Adhyay, or talking about Ashtang Hridaya Rasabhedi Adhyay, when they give the examples of exceptions for all the rasas. First, they say the general properties of the ras, and then they come up with the example. Okay, all the lavanas are achakshushya, and then they tell, okay, you should go for sendha because it is chakshushya. So the concept of exceptions, it is vividly available in Samhitas, and Tantrayukti, like Apavarga Tantrayukti, helps us to understand. Now, yes, salt contraindicated, sandhav is recommended. Amla is contraindicated, Amala, Dadim are indicated. So all those rasa exceptions, even all pulses except Mudgar, Apatya, Avikam, Dugdham, then Avikam, Sarpi, they are considered as Arudya, depending upon, or they are described in the context of Apavarga Tantrayukti. In research, very much important, first we write inclusion criteria. Okay, I'm going to take all the adult individuals from the age of 18 to 60. And after that, I write an exclusion criteria. Okay, those comorbid conditions, or this is the list of diseases where they'll not be the part of this research. And yes, we need to come up with certain reasoning for that. Why we are excluding those research participants from this current research. So yes, exceptions are followed as a part of exclusion criteria in research. Dr. Sharda, how much time we have? Please let me know. Now the next Tantrayukti is Viparya Tantrayukti. Viparya Tantrayukti is specifically about talking the things which are exactly opposite concepts. So Viparya Nama Apakrishtat Pratip Udharan. The best example which is available throughout Nidanstan. Throughout Nidanstan of Charak Samhita, when he describes all the types, talking from Jara to Apasmar, in every type at the end we find this shlok, that is Nidanoktani Asya Naupasherate. So whatever Nidanas which are told there, we are not supposed to consume, or we are not supposed to indulge in those nidanas, and viparitani cha upasherate. So we are supposed to follow or indulge in those things which are exactly opposite to the nidanas which are told in either whatever types. You take Vatach, Pittach, Kapach, Jara nidanas. So here opposite things has to be taken into consideration. In the same way, in clinical perspective, treatment is based on Vishesh principle. Whatever diet we are prescribing, that should be opposite to the Prakriti. Even whatever treatment has to be given, that should be opposite to the causative factor. We all know Hetu Pratyanik Chikitsa, Vyadhi Pratyanik Chikitsa. So itself, this Pratyanik word itself is like evidence of this Vipare Tantrayukti. Even in research also, whenever we are preparing the research protocol, we have to follow the same kind of principles. So trial drug selection is based on the principle of Vipare. So whatever diseases we are taking for our research purpose, there we need to understand the concept of Samanya and Vishesh, and on the basis of Vishesh, we need to think about Rasa Hetu, and accordingly we need to select those formulations for our research. Or treatment protocols have to be designed on the basis of those principles. Talking about Purva Paksha Tantrayukti, which is based on objection basically. So Purva Paksho Nama Pratigyat Artha Sandushakam Vakya. Now this very good discussion is going on in Charaka Samhita Sutra San 26th chapter, where Atre Purarvasu comes with the concept that okay, all fish should not be consumed with milk, but then Agnivesh comes with the shlok or like his opinion that Masyan na paisa abhyavaret iti pratigyat arthasya sarvan eva Masyan paisa abhyavaret. So he understands okay, all the fishes should be avoided, but then anyatra chilichima. So somewhere it can also be concluded okay, chilichim is very good and that should be consumed. But after that, Atre Purarvasu comes with the conclusion that why specifically he has told, so that is not exception here. He says specifically chilichim has to be avoided, and then he has given all those details why chilichim, consumption of chilichim with milk is more dangerous than the consumption of other types of fish with milk. So sometimes we come across with these kind of verses in Samhita. Now, to understand this in clinical and research perspective, history of a patient is discussed with objections to reach a final diagnosis. We all know that every hospital has got clinical boards. So whenever we come across with a patient where we are not getting results and we are not sure that what kind of treatment protocol has to be decided now, because whatever options were there, we have all tried that and still we are not getting the results. So all those cases are subjected to clinical board. Now what happens in clinical board, every clinician first will understand the symptomatology of the disease, and then he'll come up with the treatment protocol on the basis of the disease. And there a debate is going on where all the treatment options are discussed on the table, all the pros and cons are discussed with all the objections. So if the depth of the discussion is good, then certainly that clinical board is going to come up with a very genuine treatment. So there, what are the objections are discussed, that helps us to reach up to the depth of that disease and to decide an exclusive protocol for that patient for that specific disease. In the same way, research also, the research begins with objection. We all know that null hypothesis is nothing but that's an objection, and from there only, from research question only, the entire research protocol starts. So certainly objections are very good. Without that, research cannot be initiated. Without that, proper treatment of all those Gudalinga Vyadhi cannot be initiated. So certainly that's a very good concept which can be used in clinical practice or research. Now talking about Vidhan. Now again, yes, Vidhan Tantrayukti is understood in different ways in different samhitas. Vidhanam nama sutrakarascha vidhaya varnayati. So here it is about the rules that are decided, and accordingly we are supposed to follow that. The verse says Malayanani badhyante dushtai matradikar balai. So here specifically Shastrakar says, okay, Malayanani, they will be vitiated either by dushtai matra adikair malaihi. So matra adikai, so those increased quantity of malas are responsible for Malayan dushti or the adhishtanas of mala. Simultaneously dushtai. Further he says dushti shabdena malanam hinatvam. So those, both the conditions, whenever the malas are hin as well as whenever the malas are increased, they are going to cause some kind of vitiation of malayanas. So this is how we need to understand the concept of vidhana tantrayukti. Sushruta has understood this Tantrayukti in a different manner, where he says ki, so sequential interpretation is very much important here in the context of Vidhan, but restricting to Chakrapani's views, we will understand Vidhana Tantrayukti as certain rules and regulation. We all know that in clinical practice there are certain medical ethics, and throughout Samhita, we come across with certain medical ethics. There are certain guidelines that how a physician can be a better physician or best physician. If he follows all those guidelines, then certainly uh, that yasha or prasiddhi will be there. So those ethics are very much important. We are supposed to follow that. In the same way, research also, there are IC guidelines, there are research ethics. A researcher is supposed to follow. A supervisor or guide is he or she should make sure that the scholar is following all those guidelines. Then only we can end up with a good quality research. So yes, in any applied field, in any applied science, there are certain rules and regulation. There is a bracket. We are not supposed to cross that line if you want to come up with a very genuine or quality research. Talking about Anumat is nothing but the acceptance of other opinions. So a debate is going on where we are accepting others' opinion also. And throughout Samhita, whatever 7 debates are there in Charak Samhita, concluding statement by Atreya Punarvasu, it is nothing but Anumata, where he has accepted everybody's opinion, and finally also he has added his own opinion. In Charak Samhita, we come across with these shlokas where surgery is recommended, that is Dhanvantaryanam Adhikaraha. Charak Samhita debates in CMEs and seminas which are happening throughout world, where this concept of Anumata is used, and that helps us. All those Tadvidya Sambhasha, that helps us in better understanding of the concept. It helps us to understand those hidden things which we couldn't understand when we are reading and learning on our own. And also it helps us to understand those concepts which are there with experienced physicians. Even in hospital clinical board discussions regarding complex cases for diagnosis and treatment, this Tantrayukti is very well used. And yes, all those like those who strongly believe in the concept of Tadvidya Sambhasha, which is helpful for the well-being of the society, this Tantrayukti is very important in clinical perspective. In the same way, research perspective, whatever research paper citations we are giving, it is nothing but we have accepted their opinions, and that's why we are quoting all those references in our thesis or in our research articles. Also, discussion in IC or DRC, that is departmental research or doctoral review committees, it helps to take the research in proper direction. So all those debates, ultimately that churning happens there, and ultimately a conclusion is given to a scholar so that the quality of the research is maintained. And most important, all those flaws or errors which are there in the planning of the research, that can be easily eliminated. So again, this Tantrayukti is very much important in planning of a very good quality research protocol. Next Tantrayukti is Vyakhyan Tantrayukti. It is nothing but the elaboration which can be understood easily by common mass. So yes, Sarva Buddhi Vishayam Vyakriyate. So giving the details in a manner so that a very common person can understand. And yes, very much important in a clinical practice. Whenever a patient is coming to us, when we know that okay, patient is not that much literate, so even sometimes the age is not that much, so explanation of the disease in a very simple word. We cannot describe the disease in very complex medical terms so that the patient cannot understand. So whenever you want to give the details about the prognosis, whenever you want to give them all those options on the table, that these are the treatment options, and accordingly we need to make them understand the disease, the prognosis, as well as the treatment option in a very simple words, so that they can understand it properly, and that will help them to inform decision. We all know that in all like accreditation process, informed decision is very much important, and informed decision is only possible if you make them understand the disease, if you make them understand the treatment options which are available on the table in a very simple language. So yes, Vyakhyan is very much important there. In research also, yes, trilingual concept, that is the purpose of giving trilingual consent, so that the patient can understand the disease, or what kind of research he is in, he can understand it properly. Even patient information sheet that we are supposed to provide the participant in advance, that okay, this is about the research, and he has to understand it properly. And after that, we need to give him the option whether he wants to participate, and if he want to he doesn't want to participate. But that informed decision is only possible here also if you understand your research protocol properly. So a scholar has to come up with a very detailed patient information sheet, so that after reading that sheet, patient will be in a position, or patient's relative will be in a position, whether they should either be a part of this research, or whether they should avoid, or they should straightforward reject. So that's why a simple understanding of that research should be made to the participants. The concept of assent and consent is for the same purpose. Next Tantrayukti, that is Sanshay Tantrayukti, which is specifically about doubt. So Sanshay Nama Vishesh Akanksha Nirdharit Ubhay Vishay Jnanam. So Ubhay Vishay Jnanam, any concept we need to understand all the pros, all the cons, and then only we need to take the decision. So knowing all the things about this concept is very much important. So further, Shastrakaras, as if you understand this in clinical perspective, whenever we are in those clinical boards, certain doubts are raised. Each and every physician will come up with his own treatment protocol. Also, he will come up with the rejections for other treatment protocols. He will come up with certain reasonings, and all those churning is very much important to reach up to specific diagnosis and to reach up to a specific treatment protocol. So until and unless all those doubts, all those remarks which support or refute all those treatment protocols or diagnosis and prognosis aspect, if all those options are not the table, we will not be in a position to conclude or to diagnose the disease or to decide a treatment protocol. So it is very much important that certain doubts are to be raised in the process of finalizing the treatment protocol, as well as to reaching up to the diagnosis in the diseases like Gudalingragadi. Also, in research, we all know the concept of null hypothesis, alternate hypothesis, that is based on doubt. Ultimately, throughout, at the end of the research, we will be either accepting or rejecting the null hypothesis or alternate hypothesis. So yes, doubts are very much important to validate your research. That has to be there. Then Atita Vekshan Tantrayukti, it is nothing but the retrospective referencing or revisiting the older concept. So Atita Vekshanam Nama Yat Atitam Eva Uchate. Here we are talking about the past. So to understand this in clinical perspective, yes, past success stories help to treat the same cases in future. If like in the clinical seminars or CMEs, where we come across with all those deliberations and the same kind of patients are there with us. So on the basis of all those past experiences, we can also plan the treatment protocol of the patients which are available with us, and we couldn't give them proper treatment due to maybe incomplete understanding of the diseases. Even the same is also acceptable certainly for the diagnosis as well as for past medical history. We need to take past medical history in detail, though it might not be connected to the present disease, but that should be a part of thorough history taking. That will help you for proper diagnosis, prognosis, and management of the disease. In research also, we all know that past researches, we need to go through all that literary review to decide the research protocols. Those past researches are going to help you to understand the research gap. If you do not go through the details of past researches, the research gap cannot be identified, and what will happen is nothing but the overlapping of the research. Same research will be conducted again and again. So before selecting a topic, we need to identify the research gap. For that research gap, a thorough analysis of all those previous researches which are happened worldwide, and for that we Google can be helpful. All those PubMed, all those research portals, Ayush, Dhara. We need to go through all of them. Then only we can identify the research gap, which will help us to design a research protocol, which will most important avoid the overlapping of the research, and most important, it will save the time, it will save the resources of the institute as well as government. So certainly Atita action is very much important when you want to select a specific topic for your research. Anagata action is almost different. Here we are talking about future, so that is prospective referencing. In clinical practice also, future development of the disease can be predicted. So whatever signs and symptoms are there, on the basis of that we can predict the future of the disease. We can talk about the prognosis of the disease. Also we can talk about the future complications. Indriya Sthan is flooded with such kind of references. So if we can give the details about the future of the disease, then the patient can plan the disease plan the treatment of the disease in a better manner. He will be well aware about what is in the future for him or her. So here, these kind of decisions will prepare him for future decisions. So that is very much important. In research also, further scope of research study, that is very important. At the end of research article, we are supposed to give what is the further scope. Okay, this is what I have done. These are the areas where I have not worked. These are the areas where future scholars are supposed to address these issues. So yes, here we are talking nothing about this, nothing but about Anagata Action Tantrayukti. Even all these current researches help us to decide the future treatment protocols. So here, okay, present knowledge we have with us that helps us to predict or to decide something in the future. So this is how we can understand it. Swasangya, it is nothing but the technical term. Each and every practical science has got its own technical term, like Jenta, Kholak, these are the technical term. Even in clinical terminology, whenever we are writing all those case sheets, we are not writing simple English words, which are we are all using all those medical terminologies while writing the case sheets. Even for like in OPD as well as IPD, it is expected that all ASCA scholars and doctors should use the terminology, technical terminology, which are available in Samhitas. That helps us to understand the disease properly, as well as using these technical terms in our case paper very much helps us in insurance. So if you are using the translated words in English, sometimes we may end up with some problem in insurance. So if you wish that your patient should get or clear all those insurances very easily, then it is always better to use our own technical terms which are available in Samhita. Even Nidan Panchakas are the best examples of all. So throughout Samhita, even WHO has come up with two very much important works happened in Jamnagar as well as NI in the past regarding the technical terms for clinical as well as non-clinical technical terms. And now WHO has published that data. 600-page data is there, so that is very much important. So yes, if somebody wants to understand the science properly, it is not possible without the technical term. And each and every Samhita, Stutrasthan is flooded with all those technical terms. So better understanding in clinical perspective also, we need to have the details about all those technical terms. Research also, technical terms are there. It is not possible without that. All these words like single blind, double blind, parallel, or single arm study, or control, placebo control, all these are nothing but the technical terms. Just reading the title, it gives you the brief idea about the research products. So in each and every practical science research, you take clinical side, technical terms are very important. We all know CSTT, Commission for Scientific and Technical Terminology. They are working very good. They're conducting 3 days workshops for that. And the main purpose of all these workshops is nothing but to draw all those technical terms from Samhita and to make other specialists from other streams also, to make them aware about these technical terms so that they can understand Ayurvedic prescriptions maybe properly. Talking about Uyat Tantrayukti, it is nothing but based on logic. The entire medical science is based on logic. Entire research is based on logic. The definition of Anuman Praman itself is Anumanam Namo Tarko Yukti Apeksha. So a clinician cannot move a single step, as I told previously also, without Tarka. Even while describing the details about Mahakashaya, Raushadi Ganas, he has specifically said that whatever told here, it is for Mandanam Vyavaharaya. And further he says Budhanam Buddhi Vivruttaye. So now it is up to the intellect, it is up to the Tarka Shakti of the physician that further he can add few more dravyas in all those Mahakashayas. Even while planning the treatment protocol, Anuman Praman has to be used, and Anuman Praman is not possible without Tarka Shakti. In research also, hypothesis is nothing but Tarka. Interpretation of data requires Tarka Shakti. Mode of action, if you want to say how this drug has worked or how those untoward effects are there, how additional effects are there. So whatever you are writing in your discussion, it is based on observations. Also, it is based on Tarka Shakti. So those data which cannot be provided with like those conclusions which cannot be provided with the data, here we cannot here we need to come up with those uh, conclusions which are based on Tarka Shakti. So yes, in clinical practice as well as in research, we use this Tantrayukti very widely. Samuchay Tantrayukti is about a group of, it is nothing but the collection of certain things. It's a grouping. So clinical practice also, multiple signs and symptoms are required to reach up to the conclusion. Evidence-based medicine is nothing but collecting all those evidences which will authenticate the use of that medicine in those kind of diseases. We all know the definition of yukti praman, buddhi pashyatiya bhavan bahu karana yoga. So here also bahu karanas are required. Without that, yukti praman cannot be used. In research also, literary review, data interpretation after grouping, standardization of drug, analytical study, clinical study. So everything has to be connected. So all those puzzles, until and unless you connect them, you will not be able to solve the mystery. Though it is in clinical perspective, though it is in research perspective, this Tantrayukti is important to connect all those puzzles. Nidarshan Tantrayukti, it is about examples which are understood by low IQ people. So Nidarshanam Nama Murkha Vidusham Buddhi Samya Vishayo Drushtantaha. Yes, in clinical perspective also very widely use this Tantrayukti for explaining complex phenomena, as we have seen previously also. In practice, physician has to use this Tantrayukti to explain the disease, also pathology, as well as treatment protocol to the patient. The more the simpler words, it is easy for the understanding, and then only the patient can take the informed decision. The same is about research, whether to participate in a research, whether not to participate in a research, informed decision has to be taken. But for informed decision, researcher has to help the participants. So explanation of patient information sheet, it should be in simple words so that it can be understood by a common man. And this is the reason why a common man is there in ethical committee, so that he can understand your patient information sheet, and that will help you to plan the research protocol in a proper manner. For Nirvachan Tantrayukti, it is about the examples, but again, it is specifically for those high IQ or intelligent people. We all know that this is Nirvachan Nama Pandit Buddhi Gamya. So all high IQ people, we need to give the example so that they can understand it properly. We all know that in our OPD case paper, we always write about occupation. Occupation is nothing but, even we write about education. Why we are taking the history about the occupation and education? That we want to understand the IQ of the person. The more educated, we can come up with more scientific explanation about the disease, the more scientific explanation about the prognosis, and most important, the more scientific description about the treatment protocol. So yes, the examples has to be given taking into consideration. If the IQ is low, refer previous Tantrayukti. If IQ is good, refer this Tantrayukti. In the same way in research, so all technical terms are to be defined for proper understanding of research. So this is how this Tantrayukti has to be understood. Niyog Tantrayukti, these are the mandatory guidelines. As Upadesh was there, some liberty was there. In Niyog, there's no liberty. This is very rigid kind of criteria. So mandatory treatment protocols, stringent guidelines for Pathya, strict lifestyle modifications to avoid relapses. So all those patients who fall in the category of Yapya Vyadhi, there these guidelines are very important. In research also, mandatory research protocols, ethical guidelines, or whatever DRC suggestions, or research committee, institutional research committee suggestions are there. They're all mandatory for a research scholar. They have to correct it. Then the guide and scholar has to revise all those things, and then again they have to come up with the revised statement or research protocol. So we are very much following this Tantrayukti. Vikalpa is providing multiple options. So in treatment also, we provide multiple options like choosing among Shodhan, Shaman, or integrative approach option to choose from. Now there are many hospitals which are providing the treatment for Ayurveda, homeopathy, yoga, naturopathy, as well as contemporary medicine. The disease is there, patient has to give the details about, okay, these treatment options are there. Proper detailed information, pros and cons of all treatment modalities has to be given, and after that patient is in a position to take the informed decision. Even for diet protocol also we need to give multiple options. In exercise also we need to give multiple options, the same way for yoga also. So yes, day-to-day practice, when the patients we are writing patya, this is very commonly we are using. In research, to participate in a research or not to participate in a research, that is the most important choice. That first we are supposed to mandatorily provide to a participant. In randomized clinical trial, then whether in single blind or double blind, all these third person can place a subject in any of the available groups. So again, multiple options are there. Multiple arm clinical trials are there. Subjects can be provided to option to choose the treatment protocol. So yes, there are options in clinical practice as well as in research. Pratyustar Tantrayukti, Pratyustar is nothing but rejection with scientific reason. Again, very important in all those scientific debates where you are refuting somebody's opinion. It is not good, but then also you need to give some scientific reason. Then only the opponent who is there is going to accept your opinion. Throughout Samhita, 7 conferences, multiple references are there. Let us talk about clinical. So in all clinical cases, when your treatment project protocol is rejected on the basis of scientific reasoning, that has to be understood properly. A proper protocol is selected after the discussion among the experts. So rejection has to be there. It is to be welcomed, but again, genuine reasoning should be there. In research also, rejection of the synopsis or research protocols by the experts, but again, committee member, if they are rejecting a medicine or rejecting a therapy or rejecting a protocol, then they have to give genuine scientific reasoning. Even rejection of the research articles, whatever articles we are sending to reputed journals, sometimes if they are rejected, they come up with genuine reasoning. Okay, this research article is good, but this is not our domain area, that's why we are not publishing it. So yes, there should be genuine reasons for that. Peer review process also, whenever we are reviewing the articles, we have to give our opinion, and when we give our opinion, we have to give the reasoning that what we are saying, that why he or she is supposed to change those things in the research article. So this is how we are using this Tantrayukti on day-to-day basis. Uddar Tantrayukti is about rejection of others' opinion, but simultaneously supporting our own opinion. Again, the same kind of clinical board debates, advising a particular pathy after discussion, even selection of Shodhan or Shaman treatment protocol. Even if the patients are of carcinoma, then whether what kind of treatment options should be chosen, whether they should go for medical, surgical, radiation, or chemotherapy. So here we need to reject a therapy on a basis of genuine reason, and simultaneously we must come up with our genuine reason. In Samhita, there are certain references where only rejection is there. Some of the references where their rejection is also there, whereas their own opinion is there. So this is very important. In research also, whatever suggestions are there, accepting the doctoral review committee remarks or IEC remarks, we need to give the reasoning. So doctoral research progress report suggestions are there, they need to be accepted. So certain rejections and again some advices are there that we are supposed to accept. So even accepting funding agency suggestions, if you are sending for EMR research, for if you send a protocol, then you get certain suggestions, certain changes you are supposed to require. All those suggestions we are supposed to accept as per our understanding. So this is the Tantrayukti which can be used for that. Sambhav is nothing but the source of origin or possibility. So talking about diseases, now what is the possibility? If any patient has come to us, we need to think about the hetu, adhishtanas, specifically talking in the context of anukta vyadhi or in the context of trividha bodhya sangra, where tasmad vikar prakruti, adhishtana antarani, samuttana vishesha, yo tritayam gyatva. So these things are going to help us. So sambhav possibility, there we need to use buddhi, we need to think about whatever the possibilities are there, and accordingly we need to conclude the disease as well as treatment protocol. In research also, the possibilities from reliable or authentic sources or citations are taken into consideration before finalizing our own research protocols for research gaps. Now, okay, after giving all these, going into the details about all these Tantra Yuktis, like all 36 Tantra Yuktis, let us talk about these four Tantra Yuktis which are available or which are described by Bhattar Harishchandra, that is Hetu, Pariprashna, Vyakaran, Vittanta, Abhidan. Here it is clearly told in commentary that Pariprashna, Uddesho, Antarbhavati. So Pariprashna is included in Uddesh, Vyakaran is included in Vyakhyan, Vitkranta Abhidan is included in Nirdesh, whereas Hetu Shabdena, all Pramanas. So this is how all these Tantra Yuktis have to be understood. Now, after going through all these things, being a PG scholar, or if you have gone through the concepts of Tantra Yukti at UG level, we all know the importance, we all accept the importance of Tantra Yukti in literary perspective. We all know that Tantra Yuktis are very much important in understanding the Samhitas, understanding the hidden concepts, even exploring all those things which are not easy to understand, and even to elaborate those concepts. So besides that, when we talk about the application of Tantrayukti, we should also think about the clinical and research perspective. As I told in the beginning only, Tantrayukti is a concept, it is applicable for any applied science, any applied science. Yes, but still its use is only restricted to understanding samhitas, hidden meanings of verses, and most important, to put the samhitas in practice. Why we want to understand these samhitas properly? Because we need to serve the mankind in a better way, which is not possible if we have not understood our samhitas properly. So as you can see in the picture, as all these tantra yuktis are told almost at the end of samhitas, almost in the last chapter. The reason is that they are considered as the keys to open the samhitas. If you understand the samhitas without tantra yukti, it is like you are trying to open a lock without a key. If you want to understand the disease, if you want to decide a treatment protocol in a better way, the only key that is with us is tantra yukti. So these are the references that I have used for preparing this presentation. And yes, the last statement that I would like to give here is, let me quote Vaidya Sri Krishna Khandal sir, who always says that whatever available in Samhitas is only knowledge. Okay, until and unless you practice it. So this knowledge gets converted into wisdom if you practice it. And to convert this knowledge into wisdom is only possible with the help of Tantra Yuktis. Tantra Yuktis are going to help us to apply these samhitas in practice and to serve the mankind in a better way. So this was all from my side. Thank you very much for patient listening. Extremely sorry for the technical glitch that we faced once or twice. At the end, let me extend the Department of Samhita Siddhan, Government Ayurved College, Mysore. Also, let me extend Principal Sir, Shrivas Sir, Chate Sir, as well as other departmental faculties, PG scholars for providing me the opportunity to be a part of this August gathering. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Sharada.
Thank you so much, sir.
I
Now
thought I
I
had
feel
more time was given to me. So that's why repeatedly I was telling you, please let me know.
no issues, sir. That's why in between I did not want to interrupt. That is why I just left it
Okay.
like that. No
Thank you. Thank
issues.
you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you.
Yeah. Now let us have a small discussion, sir. So if
Yes.
there are any doubts, participants, please post your doubts in the chat box. I repeat, so if any doubts are there, please post your doubts in the chat box.
if there are no doubts, I'll request Srivas sir also to tell and to throw, because he's very senior and well versed with all these things. We have learned many things from him. Whenever I had doubt, I always approach sir. So I request sir to at least say few things about this.
Yes.
If there are queries, first we'll go through that. Otherwise, at least I request sir to say if he is there.
Yeah, sir is there. So I request Srivatsa sir to take on.
Namaste.
Sir,
Thank
namaste,
you,
namaste.
Dr. Ritesh. Regarding the application of concept of Tantrayukti. It gives me an immense pleasure to cherishing my knowledge also in this junction. I'd like to thank you so much for accepting our request and exclusively
It was a pleasure, sir. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
research as well as clinical practice. Commonly, what happens, we think about application of Tantrayukti only for understanding the concepts which are explained in Samhita, especially Charaka Samhita. But beyond that, considering Tantra as Chikitsa, so there is much more scope regarding the application of Tantrayukti for both research as well as clinical application. So really, it was indeed an extensive presentation from you. Almost we have taken 2 hours of lecture. Today we are fortunate enough to listen to you for 2 hours. It was not exhaustive. Of course, it might be exhaustive for you, but for us, it was like cherishing and enriching. Thank you so much for sharing your vast knowledge with we all. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Sharda.
Yeah. Sir, there is a doubt.
Okay.
What is the difference between Upadesha and Niyoga in research field?
Okay. Upadesha Tantrayukti is basically about the guidelines, but which are not mandatory. Whereas Niyog is something which is mandatory. So in research also there are certain things. There are certain, say for example, let me give an example. Now it is always better to have a trilingual consent or a bilingual consent. But sometimes what happens, there's one more option which is provided, that if some translator is there, if it is in English and somebody is translating, that also we have to accept. So this is something which is Upadesh, which we have followed. But again, there are certain guidelines which fall in the category of Niyog, which is very mandatory. That okay, the research protocol, the groupings, then randomization. There are certain guidelines which are mandatory. There's no option. There's no flexibility in this. So in research also, when we talk about IC guidelines or when we are talking about research ethics, there are certain things where we can take some liberty. That should be considered as Upadesh Tantrayukti. When there is no liberty, there is strict bracket is there is no liberty where you are supposed to mandatorily follow this. You are supposed to do what is written. This you have to do. That can be considered as Niyoga Tantrayukti.
Hope the doubt is clear. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Last call for doubts. If any doubts are there, please put in the chat box.
I think there are no more queries. Can we wind up?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sharda.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, sir. Even it was a new area for us, taking us to the realms of clinical practice and the research field oriented look into Tantrayukti. So thank you so much, sir. I now call upon Ms. Visharada, UG student, to render the vote of thanks.
कल्पयति येन वृत्तिं येन च लोके प्रशस्यति साद्भिः सगुणस्तेन च गुणिनां रक्ष्य संवर्धनीयश्च. The skill that sustains livelihood and which is praised by all should be fostered and protected for our own development. Namaste everyone. Here we have all gathered on a visual platform to celebrate Charaka Jayanti through Charaka Prabodham, a national level webinar series 2023. It is my utmost honor to show my gratitude and thank everyone on this occasion. I would like to thank our guest, resource person, Dr. Ritesh Gujarathi sir, Department of Samhita Siddhanta, G.J. Patil Institute of Ayurvedic Studies and Research, CVM Institute, Gujarat. Thank you, sir, for enlightening us about the topic of Tantrayukti beyond literary perspective. I hope that we will be able to inculcate the same in our practical ways. Thank you, sir. I would like to extend my gratitude to the president of this event, Dr. K.S. Radhakrishna Ramrao sir, Principal, GMC Mysore, without whose support this event would not soar the skies of success. Thank you, sir, for this opportunity and the support. I would like to thank the building blocks of this event, Dr. Srivatsa sir, Dr. Vasudev Chate sir, Dr. Ramesh sir, and Dr. Bhavna ma'am, the event organizers from Department of Samhita Siddhanta, GMC Mysore. I would like to thank the pillars of the support, event advisor, Dr. Varsha Kulkarni ma'am, and Dr. Sanjay sir, without whose support this event would not have been a success. I would like to extend my gratitude to PG scholars, staff, faculty, and Department of Samhita Siddhanta, GMC Mysore. I thank Student Association 2023-24 batch Agastya, GMC Mysore. Lastly, I would like to thank the heart and soul of this program, our dear listeners, staff, doctors, PG scholars, and UG students from all over. With gratitude in my heart, I bow to everyone and I thank each one today. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Visharada. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's end the session. Thank you. Thank you so much.